I never imagined that cleaning could feel like an emotional minefield, but that afternoon, as I watched him linger longer than anyone ever should in someone else's home, I realized that mundane chores can reveal things you weren't ready to see about yourself. It started innocently enough. My husband had invited a few friends over for a casual weekend barbecue, and by the time the crowd dispersed, our kitchen looked like a battlefield. Plates, glasses, and crumbs covered every surface, and I was already feeling exhausted from a long week. That's when Marcus, my husband's closest friend since college, offered to stay behind and help me clean up. At first, I hesitated. I didn't want him in my personal space more than necessary, but there was a warmth in his smile, a familiarity that made saying no difficult. He didn't just help in a perfunctory way, he moved around the kitchen with ease, picking up dishes, stacking them in the dishwasher, and joking about how terrible we all were at cleaning up after ourselves. His laughter was easy, his presence calming in a way that my husband rarely was at home. I felt seen in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. As we worked side by side, I noticed the little things that never stood out before. The way his hand brushed against mine while reaching for a pan. The way he leaned slightly closer when asking a question, as though our conversation carried an intimacy it shouldn't. I found myself laughing more than usual, letting my guard down in a way that made me feel both alive and guilty. I kept telling myself it was harmless, he was just being friendly, after all, but deep down, I knew there was something magnetic about his attention. Something I hadn't realized I'd been craving. Cleaning together turned into a strange dance of physical proximity and unspoken emotional exchange. Every shared glance, every accidental touch, became a charged moment. I found my thoughts wandering to places I shouldn't allow myself to go, wondering what it would feel like to lean into him, to feel the kind of closeness I imagined couples have in quiet, private moments. The more we moved around the kitchen, the more I became aware of my own heart rate, the warmth rising in my chest, the rapid thoughts racing in my head. It was intoxicating, a dangerous mixture of excitement and shame. I couldn't help but compare him to my husband. My husband was wonderful in many ways, but in that moment, with Marcus, I felt a connection that seemed effortless, almost electric. I wondered why I had never noticed these qualities before, or why I had dismissed them as irrelevant. The cleaning task, something so ordinary, had become a mirror reflecting desires I didn't want to acknowledge, desires that were both exhilarating and frightening. When we finally finished, I found myself lingering, not quite ready to break the spell of the afternoon. I noticed the way he looked at me, a subtle shift in his gaze that suggested he felt it too. My stomach churned with a cocktail of guilt, curiosity, and longing. I knew we had crossed some invisible line, a boundary marked not by overt action but by the intensity of shared attention and vulnerability. It was a moment I could neither ignore nor fully understand. By the time Marcus left, I was left alone with the quiet kitchen and the thunderous storm of my own emotions. The mundane act of cleaning had unlocked a door I wasn't sure I was ready to open, a door that led to temptation, emotional attachment, and the realization that even the simplest moments can carry the weight of forbidden intimacy. I never imagined that cleaning could feel so charged, but that afternoon, as I looked around our kitchen piled high with dishes, crumbs, and empty glasses, I felt an unexpected tension in the air. My husband had invited a few of his friends over for a casual weekend gathering, and by the time everyone left, I was exhausted from hosting and working all week. Marcus, my husband's oldest friend, stayed behind, insisting he wanted to help me tidy up. At first, I hesitated. I didn't want to intrude on his time or appear ungrateful, yet there was something in his easy smile and confident demeanor that made me silently nod in agreement. I told myself it was purely practical, 2 people could clean faster than one, but deep down, a tiny spark of anticipation had already ignited. As we began clearing the table together, I noticed how natural his movements were, how effortlessly he reached across the counter or handed me a dish. He joked lightly about how messy everyone was, and I found myself laughing more freely than I had all week. There was a comfort in his presence, an unexpected ease that made me feel lighter and noticed. Every brush of his hand against mine while passing utensils, every shared glance, seemed to linger just a moment longer than necessary, and I felt an odd warmth rise in my chest. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable, a silent energy threading between us. I told myself repeatedly that it was innocent, that I was imagining things, yet the tension was undeniable. Marcus's attention felt different from my husband's. My husband was loving and dependable, yet predictable, while Marcus had a certain unpredictability that made me feel alive in a way I hadn't realized I craved. He asked questions about my week, commented on small details I thought no one noticed, and listened in a way that made me feel truly seen. I noticed little things I had never paid attention to before: the tilt of his head when he was thinking, the quiet warmth in his voice, the subtle way he mirrored my movements without even seeming conscious of it. I felt a mix of exhilaration and guilt. The attraction was creeping in uninvited, and I was powerless to stop it. As we moved around the kitchen together, washing dishes and wiping counters, the mundane task began to transform. Simple touches, like brushing past one another or exchanging cleaning supplies, carried a heightened intensity. I could feel the small electric charges that passed when our fingers brushed, and my mind wandered to forbidden possibilities. I caught myself imagining what it would be like to lean closer, to feel the warmth of his body nearby, to hear his voice whisper something private just to me. I scolded myself internally for these thoughts, but they persisted, fueled by the intimacy of our shared effort and the unspoken connection that had developed in such a short time. The more we worked, the more aware I became of my own reactions. My heart seemed to beat faster for no apparent reason, my palms felt warmer, and I found myself stealing glances at him, noticing details I had never seen before. Cleaning together had become an unintentional dance, a back and forth that left me dizzy with tension. The casual banter, the jokes, the shared effort, it all felt layered with a silent communication that neither of us dared to voice. It was thrilling and terrifying at the same time. I knew I was crossing an invisible line, not with actions, but with thoughts, attention, and energy. By the time we finished, I felt a strange emptiness in the absence of his presence, as if the connection we had shared lingered in the air long after he had left. I was left with a quiet kitchen and a whirlwind of emotions: curiosity, guilt, longing, and confusion all intertwined. A task as ordinary as cleaning had exposed hidden desires and vulnerabilities I hadn't acknowledged before. It had revealed that even the simplest, most innocent moments could hold the potential for emotional intimacy that could